Super Bowl 58 is set in Las Vegas for 2 weeks from yesterday. The Bulls come up roses in the city of Portland. NFL coaching changes and more. College basketball takes a new turn. And we'll have the last edition of Old School TV Monday from the month of February. That and a whole lot more as you now tune into Second City Sports hashtag Monday Fun Edition on Sports Zone Chicago, which starts right now. Welcome to this Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Lakina McGee on the Twitter, X. I can't scroll again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are at More Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions due to our tour, our extravaganza, we call a sports talk radio show. You can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll and or do silly, stupid, dumb, or just right out foolish. I've given Lakina full power to give you fools to build and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can catch Sports Zone Chicago not now, but right now on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you do not have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Android, or your Chromebook like I'm using right now, or your PC like Lakina's using right now, just hit up the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And since it's a little bit warmer outside, we'll provide you, as always, with some of the great stuff here on Second City Sports. Super Bowl 58 is set over in Vegas. Also, too, the Bulls, cap off, get a nice way to close out the West Coast road trip, of course, some college hoops, some upsets there, and a whole lot more, of course, Old School TV Monday, the always fun time by everyone. But first, like Sid mentioned in this teaser, we have our Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is now set over in Vegas.
1 and 6. Out of the gun. He's able to fire it to Pacheco for a first down. Did not have a single snap inside the 25. Here's Kansas City from the 19, throwing at the goal line, and it's caught by Kelsey for the touchdown. Edwards is the definition of a north-south runner, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
From the pocket. Cuts away from Chenal, who's trying to get after him for a second time, but the ball is thrown to the end zone, and it's caught. Flowers with the touchdown goal. It's back to Pacheco. Pacheco drives across for the Chiefs touchdown. 2nd and 8 from the 9. Jackson to Flowers. He dives. The ball came out. It's recovered by Kansas City.
All right, of course, those highlights were from CBS Sports as the Chiefs held off the Ravens 17-10 for their third trip to the Super Bowl in 5 years. And Pat Mahomes threw for 241 yards and 1 touchdown. Lamar Jackson on the flip side threw for 272 yards, a TD, but also had an interception. He was sacked 4 times. Lamar was also the leading rusher for 54 yards. I'll get to that in a second. Isaiah Pacheco had 68 rushing yards and a TD. Travis Kelce had 116 yards and receiving yards and a TD for the Chiefs. And I have my drivers about this game. I'll talk about it in a second. But this is one of those games where there were a lot of missed opportunities. And for me, Baltimore, yeah, there were some bad calls. There were some questionable calls. A couple of PI calls that should have went their way. But at the same time, though, you didn't use a run game a lot. And I think what they were trying, they tried to outsmart the Chiefs, try to beat them at their own game instead of sticking to the stuff that got them there in the first place, that got them this far. So, Sid, I'll let you have the floor. What do you think about that championship game in the AFC?
Baltimore played scared. They played tight. They played nervous, and they played not to lose instead of playing to win, being the aggressor. And that's what happened yesterday. Did you see before the game they tried to start some scuffles with Kansas City?
Yeah.
I get it. You have the.
Well, no, I saw. Well, for what I saw, thank you to James Palmer from the NFL Network. He saw what Kelce did. He was looking at Justin Tucker, of course, the kicker for the Rams, and I guess he wanted to move. Even though there was a whole area on that field that was all open, Kelce decided to move the football and in Tucker's helmet. Yeah, there was some jarring. I know. I don't know what Roquan Smith said during that. I guess they didn't do him any good, but I mean, there was some chirping back and forth and whatnot, and I think that kind of thing just makes a team hate, the public hate you even more. So continue.
But the Ravens were undisciplined. They tried to start a scuffle before the game, and you could tell whatever happened on that field before the game yesterday, it affected them on the field because they were totally out of sync, out of focus. And you could blame Lamar Jackson all you want to. And I know we'll talk about that turnover which he committed in just a minute, but I blame this majority on John Harbaugh in the coaching, because you come out there after the first drive of the Kansas City's opening drive, which we played there, and you scored that touchdown with Zay Flowers. Okay, I figure it'll be kind of a shootout, but that Baltimore defense has been very good all year, creating turnovers and whatnot, and creating havoc. But after that first touchdown drive, the Baltimore's offense didn't even come alive for the rest of the game. Like you mentioned, they had other opportunities, and they let it. They fumbled the bag, to be honest with you. And those three penalties toward the end of that first half, Lakina, which started to snowball for Baltimore the other way. They were lucky at the time; they only costed them 3 points, with Kansas City hitting that field goal to go into the locker room. But that team, I'm talking about in Baltimore, they were undisciplined, they were unfocused. The coaches coached not to lose. They coached not to lose instead of being aggressive in coaching to win that ball game. And we talked about this all year too with Kansas City. Their offense has been sputtering all year long. Now, their running game has picked up late over the last month or so, and we saw that again yesterday during the crucial parts of the game. But that game was to be had by the Baltimore Ravens, as you said. They just couldn't take advantage of it. They stepped on their own way. I know some people may say, well, Kansas City dominated from start to finish. You can make an argument that Baltimore lost the game more than Kansas City won it.
That's probably where I would go with that. I mean, look, some of those penalties were just silly. I mean, the Zay Flowers punching, I think that was, I don't know if that was Creed Humphrey or Troy Smith, but kind of slugged him there. And I think he was fine until he had punched him. I mean, the taunting, I think they would have let them slide a little bit taunting. I'll get to that referee and crew in a second, because I got something to say about that crew for the AFC title game. But after the first half, I mean, the Chiefs really didn't do too much. They punted the ball each of the 5 possessions they had in the second half, they punted. So the defense did what they could to keep them in it. And for me, I think it was really the offense. Not running the ball, not using Gus Edwards more or Justice Hill. You got Dalvin Cook. You didn't even use him once. You brought him in for a reason. He should just went down through the little blockage there, because there was a little bit of issue with the Chiefs. Jackson trying to force it in various ways. I mean, that didn't help either. Flowers fumbling it at the one, just that didn't help. I think that kind of what kind of killed the momentum because that imagine they had scored if either times that Flowers would have scored. I mean that would have changed the answer of the game right there, and I kind of felt like there were everybody wants to say that the Chiefs dominated. Not really, they didn't dominate. It was basically Baltimore gave. I don't want to say gave that game away, but there were so many chances from the game, perhaps not just take the tie, perhaps take the lead. But for me, I think this is more like you said. So this wasn't a dominant. I know Chiefs fans want to say, "Oh, they dominated." No, they didn't. They really didn't. I mean, after that first half, defense held down. Roquan Smith. I mean, it would have been nice if him and Clowney had forced a couple of turnovers. Maybe that would have helped their offense a little bit. But there were just so many. Baltimore have a lot of points left on the board, and I'm sorry, but yeah, this was more. The Chiefs won. The Chiefs lost. I mean, the Ravens lost it more than the Chiefs did.
You're listening to Second City Sports on the hashtag Monday Fun Edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here discussing the AFC Championship game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs win the AFC title by defeating Baltimore on the road by the score of 17-10. Lakina, this is the second consecutive road playoff game in Patrick Mahomes' career. He didn't play great yesterday, but as I mentioned, him and Isaiah Pacheco, their running back, who I thought was the MVP of the last two games for the Chiefs, they did what they had to do yesterday to eliminate Baltimore from the playoffs. And I want to go back on the flip side to Baltimore. You mentioned Zay Flowers in that turnover. He did the right thing and dived for the end zone, but you got to secure the ball, young man. You got to secure the ball. I believe it was Snead, number 38, Lakina, for Kansas City. I know we played the highlight a couple of minutes ago. He made a great play. Just punch that ball out and see what happens. So what happened? Kansas City turned over Baltimore in the red zone, and like you said, it was these, in my opinion, the second act that created that snowball down here for Baltimore.
Excuse me, and well, and also too, I think that was more. I don't even think Reed really touched him. Snead. I don't think Snead really even touched Flowers. I think Flowers just dropped the ball as soon as he kind of just just brushed it to him, and just that was you got to keep the ball. And I know that he was trying to stretch it, but you didn't need to get in the end zone. You only need to get to the one, and you would have gotten the first down. Then you could have set something up for the touchdown, and perhaps maybe could have maybe a whole bunch of stuff could have happened there. And it's just one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, I know Chiefs fans want to kind of make a big deal about, well, look, you didn't dominate. I mean, you didn't score any points in the second half. The only reason that you even won that game is because Baltimore shot themselves in the foot. I mean, look, I know.
Also,
well, no, you go ahead and you go get your point across.
Yeah, I wanted to give some love to the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I know people want to rag about Lamar Jackson not having a great game. No, he did not have a great game. And it was a costly turnover in that fourth quarter, which it was stage number 3 for me when he was trying to get that ball in between triple coverage to tight end Isaiah Likely. And that was just a bad throw by Lamar. And he knew better. That's why he threw down his helmet once he got to the sidelines after that turnover was committed. But give that Chiefs defense credit. They took away the deep ball from Lamar after that first touchdown drive, which we played that Baltimore scored on courtesy of Zay Flowers. Also, they limited Lamar Jackson in the pocket as well. You just see him running around a whole lot. I know he led the team in rushing, as you mentioned, but that Baltimore running game as a team overall was ineffective. I know Lamar Jackson got a lucky reception rather off a tip ball early in that second half. But besides that Baltimore Ravens run game was not to be seen, and that was unfortunate. But at the same time, you got to give the Chiefs defense credit. They took away the deep ball from Lamar Jackson, and they shut down the running game.
Which they should have used it more. I'm talking about the Ravens. And
look,
where was Dalvin Cook at? You brought him in for a reason. You didn't use him. Gus Edwards, we didn't see too much of him. So, yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, you give Chris Jones, Snead and a lot of those guys credit. But at the same time, though, I think this is, again, and I still say this, Baltimore lost this game more than the Chiefs won. I know Chiefs fans don't want to hear that, but they didn't dominate the game. Yeah, they made the plays they did, but look, the Ravens, they try to be like the Chiefs, which they're not the Chiefs. They should have stuck to what got them there. They didn't use the run game as much as they should have. And once that default wasn't, it wasn't happening. OBJ was a non-factor. it was just one of those things where you're just like, okay, what was the plan here? Like, what was the coaching, plan? And I know everyone said, oh, they were scared. And no. I think they were just trying to be the Chiefs, and they unfortunately found out too late that they're not the Chiefs. So for me, I think that was more the fact that no, they weren't scared. It was just that, look, they tried to do too much and it just didn't work.
And also, let's go back to the Chiefs side of things. I talked about Isaiah Pacheco, who's been effective these last 2 playoff games, in my opinion. I know that the statistics doesn't glare out at you when it comes to him, but 24 carries, 60 yards in a touchdown. That was key for that struggling Chiefs offense. Travis Kelce is back. You saw what he did last week against Buffalo, scoring twice. He scored once yesterday, 11 catches for over 116 yards in the score. I believe that Travis Kelce is back. We talked about him, Lakina, losing his touch a little bit, maybe some off-the-field distractions in Taylor Swift. We'll get to that another time. But he's really stepped up these last 2 games as well. I believe it's him and Isaiah Pacheco. They've been the Chiefs MVPs on offense, perhaps overall on the team these last 2 weeks.
I mean, look, I know that people were like, I'm sick of the Chiefs being at the Super Bowl. I'm sorry. But they're I mean, look, the one thing you can say about the Patriots, they kind of kept quiet. Now, you could say that maybe, Brady and Belichick probably didn't want them to do too voiceless, but those guys, you look at them now, you see Rodney Harrison, Teddy Bruschi, Richard Seymour, Brady too. I mean, those were not the type of guys' personalities. There was a whole lot of jarring. There was a little lot of talking. Kelce was the main culprit. He was kind of like talking and talking. He got Kyle Van Noten to push him back. Excuse me. That kind of was a penalty killer there because they were deep in their own territory, and that little penalty there, I think that got him near away from that. And same thing with Roquan Smith. I mean, he tried to push one of the O linemen for the Chiefs, and unfortunately, he would have been better off just trying moving around and such. That would have just forced a first down, and then you probably could have tried to kind of set things up from there. But I mean, yeah, but you know what? I mean, I whatever. But for me, I think this is sort of like it's gotten to a point that they're the Chiefs are getting the same hate that the Patriots, and only because the Chiefs are more boisterous about it. You can kind of appreciate the Patriots a little bit because they kind of kept quiet. They didn't they're not like show offy or flashy.
It was also due to Bill Belichick setting the tone as well.
But I think a lot of those guys were not their personalities. They're not the kind of you see Harrison or Bruschi and Seymour, and you didn't see them do a lot of trash talking because that just wasn't their personality. So I think for me that was more not really just Belichick, but I think those guys just didn't have that kind of mindset about them, and the Chiefs are just a totally different vibe. That's why the hate's so broad. But look, I think we'll see what happens. Like I said, we got a couple weeks before we can start talking about it, but we're gonna be talking about their opponent. And I know everybody's already saying that they should give the Chiefs a trophy, but not so fast.
And just to put a capper on this AFC Championship talk, Lakina, I think Baltimore will be back. Will they be back next year? We'll see, because in the NFL, parity is king, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to be back here every year. We'll talk about the team that took the NFC title after this break, but Lakina, hopefully Baltimore can look at themselves in the mirror. They'll have 6 months to do it and to see what went wrong, and they can add a couple of pieces here and there. They're not that far away, but like you said, they did themselves in yesterday. They stepped on their own 2 feet, and it costed them. But we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I hope so. I want Lamar to get another shot at it.
Me too.
I really do. But he plays in a very tough division. The AFC is very tough. So I don't want to say this is going to be his only shot, but this was their chance and they blew it. So we'll see what happens. Of course, after this break, we'll talk about the NFC title game, the very exciting NFC title game between the Lions and the 49ers. Also the coaching carousel for the NFL. So lots of new familiar names and new places, and one guy that might not have a job after with the musical chair. So Lakina McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. More NFL and Championship Sunday talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports or Sports Zone Chicago, and you're listening to the Monday edition. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, X at Keena and the IG.
Make sure that you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure, since we have less than 85 minutes left of this program, you hit us up with your questions or comments and your opinions. You can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. The best comments and questions, they appear up on the screen. Lakina will display them up for you.
Yep. And but first we're gonna. Oh crap! Sorry, folks. This is networking for me. Let's go to the NFC title game, Sid. Of course, a massive comeback by San Francisco, and here we go, courtesy of Fox.
First down, another fake. Coming with Jamison Williams, the speedster, has a block. Williams cuts up, 25, 20, still on his feet. Jamison Williams scores! Montgomery on second and goal, surging his way forward. He's in! Touchdown, Detroit. When they get there. McCaffrey, second and goal. Up and in! Touchdown, San Francisco. Now it's Gibbs. Trying to get to the edge. Gets a block from the corner. Makes a man miss. Gibbs inside the 5. Touchdown, Detroit! Here's Purdy. Looking. Firing end zone. Caught! Ayuk! Touchdown! Badgley gets into it high and over. And it's loose. Ball loose. Kittle's going to pick it up, and that'll be that.
And like I said, those highlights are from the Big Fox Network as the 49ers come back to beat the Lions 34-31. It's this is their ninth trip to the Super Bowl, if I'm not. Well, actually, this is their third this century, and unfortunately, of course, they haven't won since 1994 and 95, of course, against the then San Diego Chargers. But what a win, Sid. I mean, we saw if you did see in the highlights, an improbable catch by Brandon Ayuk that kind of turned the game around, and of course, Dan Campbell not taking the points twice and other stuff that kind of transpired. So, Sid, what do you think?
We'll break down the game by halves. In the first half, Detroit punched the San Francisco 49ers in the mouth. The Lions took the ball from the opening drive. As we played the highlight there, Jameson Williams scored on a wide receiver reverse, and Jahmyr Gibbs also scored a touchdown. The Lions were aggressive. They were running the ball in between the teeth of the 49ers defense, and Jared Goff was playing at his best. And don't forget, too, Amon-Ra St. Brown, their top wide receiver, he made a couple of catches, I believe 2 to 3 of them on third down to keep those drives moving. But what happened in the second half, the 49ers turned the page. They turned Brock Purdy loose. Their defense got after Detroit. Detroit had a couple of drops, courtesy of Josh Reynolds there. And you mentioned with those 0 for 2 on fourth down conversions for the Lions. One of them, they could have settled for the field goal. I know we could play Monday morning quarterback, which we're doing here with those decisions by Lions head coach Dan Campbell. But if they would have taken one of those possessions as a field goal, we might be playing in overtime right now as we speak.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those things where you saw Coach Campbell's comments after the game. He doesn't regret the decision that he made, but the thing is that again, it's like I said on Twitter, it's okay to take a risk every once in a while, but there's a time to be logical too. And I think he should have been more logical than try to try to force it. So yeah, look what happened. Now the 49ers parts that had been 0-5 and trailing by 14 plus points since a couple of seasons ago back in 2022. So they get their first win. So I guess Kyle Shanahan, the rest of that group was able to exercise those demons. And now also too with this win, the 49ers also have the most playoff wins in NFL history. That they're now tied with the 49ers. They now 38. Breaking that tie with the Packers and the Patriots. They now have 38 over the 49ers do. So you get the 49ers credit. I mean, they could have just fallen by the wayside after some of the games they especially that 3 days stretch, especially that game against Baltimore on Christmas, but they didn't. Brock Purdy.
I want to talk about the
Brock Purdy settled down. The defense, played better in the second half, so they made the big plays we needed to. So I think that the 49ers definitely earned this win.
Yeah, I want to talk about the defensive squad for both teams. I'll start with Detroit. They were aggressive, especially in their first half. They got a couple of sacks on Brock Purdy, but they got to him at least 2 or 3 times in the second half, which I thought they should have had a sack. But as I mentioned in my opening monologue, Brock Purdy was turned loose by head coach Kyle Shanahan, and he made the plays with his feet. Now, on the flip side for the 49ers, they did get home to Jared Goff a couple of times, courtesy of Nick Bosa in that first half. But in the second half, they changed their coverages on Goff, nor did it force any turnovers. But they did get home to Goff a couple more times in that second half. And they did shut down their run game, forcing that fumble on Jahmyr Gibbs, which I thought was one of the momentum turning points in the game for the 49ers in their comeback victory.
Yeah, also too, like you said, Purdy keeping the chains move with his feet too. I think people didn't realize how he actually pretty quick, Mr. Purdy. Also too, like I said, that big pass to Ayuk, that kind of was from the momentum as well for the 49ers. So it was definitely a total team effort. You saw the 49ers how they reacted after the game. This is their third straight NFC title game. They lost a tough one against the Eagles last year after Purdy went out. They were able to kind of exercise those demons. I know Kyle Shanahan kind of exercised some of those demons too. So kind of been able to pull off the big comeback there. And on the flip side for Detroit, I mean, look. I mean, they've got they picked up a lot of great players. Like I said, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta has been a great find. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams, but they need to shore up that secondary and they need to shore up that front
Mhm.
seven with Aiden Hutchinson. And because I think if they can definitely sustain success, but they need to make some moves. And Brad Halls, I'm sure Brad Halls is more than capable of doing that.
Yeah, shout out to the brother Brad Holmes for being the GM for the Detroit Lions. He does have some work to do this offseason, but I don't think it's going to be that difficult because you don't have to find a new head coach for the first time in a couple years. Number two, your foundation is set. Like you said, they kind of I want to bring this home just a little bit to compare to the Bears. We all know the Bears need a little bit more than Detroit since Detroit made the playoffs and the Bears didn't. But like you said, for the Lions, you could. This is for any team in the National Football League. You cannot have enough pass rushers. We know what Aiden Hutchinson can do, but you need another. You need another one if you're the Detroit Lions to help him out. As I mentioned in our interview with Aaron Wilson from the Bay Area on Chrome 4 News, the Lions, even though that's an opportunistic secondary, they could come up with a couple of turnovers like they did last week against Tampa Bay. That secondary suspect at best. You need a shut down corner, and you could use another linebacker via Detroit. If they could do those things via free agency, and of course what they can find in the draft, I think they'll be back again next year. But it's going to be awfully tough, even though this NFC conference will still be wide open next year. And you know as well as I do, Lakina, you're always going to have a couple of turnovers as far as teams that make the playoffs the year before they don't make it the next year. See in our own division with this, i.e. the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I think if they can make those changes, they could definitely be up there. As they will say, well, so we'll see where Minnesota is next year. Of course, we'll see where the Bears are next year. Remember, the Packers are the youngest team in the league, so you think they can only get a little bit better too. They may have had a couple of veteran pieces there as well. So, yeah, I think Detroit does have the tools to sustain success, but yeah, and make a few tweaks. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the NFL, can change like that in every single year. There's always like a new team that kind of comes out of nowhere. So look, it's going to be tough, especially in a wide open conference like the NFC, and then in the North. But yeah, we've seen a lot of weird things happening. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting off season for the Lions, that's for sure.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. On the Monday edition, I'm Sid Thessalakina. We're discussing the coaching carousel coming up in just a minute, but we'll put a capper on this NFC Championship game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. Of course, San Francisco will represent the NFC 2 weeks from yesterday in Super Bowl 58 as they'll face the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch from Super Bowl 54. Lakina, maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later on if we have time, but I was reading a couple of website articles, a couple of blogs that, of course, this was Fox's last game of the season. They're completing their 30th year with the NFL. Of course, Terry Bradshaw wasn't there yesterday due to sickness. Hopefully he gets well soon. Of course, getting ready for next season. And some people may think that this was Greg Olsen's last broadcast yesterday, as Tom Brady, who signed that massive contract with Fox before the season, he took this year off to spend some time with his family and perhaps get some training under his belt to do games next year, perhaps with Kevin Burkhardt. Do you believe that this was Greg Olsen's last broadcast?
I hope not. I mean,
hope not either.
Yeah, I mean, we said this when this whole news came out. Do a 3-man booth. I mean, I know you're paying Brady all that money, not just to do football, but to develop documentaries and such, for his production company. They may do his podcast and, visual podcast. They may have to put that like streaming on Fox somewhere. That's the rumor I heard. But Greg Olsen's a damn good analyst. You can see he's improved a lot over the years. And look, we don't know Tom Brady's a great podcast host, but we don't know he's, doing the X's and O's is a totally different thing. So you're going to need that there. Look, we've seen 3-man booth, especially recently work. I mean, look, it worked at CBS this past season with Andrew Kellogg, Matt Ryan, and Tiki Barber. So it actually are a solid 3-man booth. So I'm sure they're going to try to build off that. And look, if not, I mean, they could go to, CBS could back the Brady shirt from Mr. Olsen. I said that yesterday. Just saying.
Lakina and her broadcasting conspiracies.
Especially if Voice Call doesn't do well in the Super Bowl. I mean,
Yeah, and let's not forget as well. The Fox will have Super Bowl 59 on their airways next season as well.
Yeah, so there might be a little bit of incentive for him to stay for a little bit, but yeah, they do the 3-man booth. I mean, let's not don't put him out the pasture. Do the 3-man booth. He and Kevin already have a nice rapport. Let Brady come in and kind of even learn off him. I think we know he's willing to learn. Talk about Brady, so let him feed off him. And they've done 3-man booths before. It's not that hard, folks. It can be done.
Yeah, and we've seen it through history over the last 25, 30 years. Remember when NBC did had the games on Sunday afternoons?
Mm-hmm.
Phil Simms got in the broadcast, and they threw him in with the 3-man booth. It was him, the late, great Dick Enberg, and Paul McGuire before you went to Sunday Night Football on ESPN. And that worked for a few years.
Did a couple of Super Bowls, too. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible. Look, this is part of our use from Monday Night Football. Al Michaels, Frank Gifford, God rest his soul, and Dan Dierdorf. I mean, I feel like that we'll do Monday Night Football at some point for Old School TV Monday. But people forget that trio was actually very solid for about a decade, a little over a decade. So I'm just saying.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakina hanging out here with you now. Lakina, let's transition over to the coaching carousel. There's 2 openings in Washington and Seattle. But first, let's bring it home to here in Chicago. The Bears have a new defensive coordinator. Tell us about him.
Yeah, he's a guy that is I don't want to say new to the Bears, because he was here during the early 2000s, early aughts. He's Eric Washington, and he was a D-line coach for a long time. He played in the league. This is a guy that comes with a lot of experience. I think there was a lot of familiarity between him and the McCaskey. That's probably one of the reasons why that he got the edge. And I do wonder, though, remember, Coach Matt Eberflus was going to be calling the plays, and I guess he's going to just concentrate on the D-line. That's his specialty. So that probably might have been the reason why he got a job at either some more veteran, more guys with experience as DCs didn't get the job, because they probably wanted to have at least share and have Flus sharing calling the plays. But I guess you could say it's a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. But I mean, he did a really good job with Carolina. That D-line was actually one of the few good things about that Panthers team this year. But yeah, I mean, I like this move, but it doesn't really make the move the needle for me either way.
Yeah, those are the only question that I have. Like, will he be calling the plays, or will Matt Eberflus still continue to call the plays? I know that you're the head coach of any team, especially in football. You can't concentrate on everything at once, so that's why you have coordinators and assistant coaches to alert you on things, and you could, as a head coach, make the best decision regarding your football team. So that was the only question I had. Will he be sharing the call playing duties with Matt Eberflus, or will he just be just as he is an assistant to Eberflus, giving him tips on some things? So that was the only issue that I had. But as I said before, Lakina, with the bigger issue with this Bears team is we'll stick with the defense. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see just Montez Sweat as the primary pass rusher and everybody else just stand there and do little to nothing. That's why with Brian Poles, this is where he comes in. You cannot have enough pass rushers, especially in today's NFL, where scoring is higher than ever before. The Bears finished number 1, I believe, in the NFL in run defense, which is great, but I need you to get home on the quarterback and sack him. And that's the name of the game. Stopping the run is great, but I need you to stop the quarterback, sack the quarterback, rush the quarterback, sack the quarterback. I don't want to be it's just Montez Sweat and everybody else just stands around. And I don't think we're going to see that happen. But like I said, GM Brian Poles has a lot of work to do, so we'll see what happens.
Good, very interested to see what's going to be the thing. I guess is it just going to be the DC in name only? That's really going to be the number one question here. So we'll see what happens. But some coaching changes, more coaching changes. The Falcons have found their guy and veteran coordinator, and also a former head coach himself, Mr. Raheem Morris. And also they've got their new QB coach in Zach Robinson, who did wonders for Matt Stafford's career over in Los Angeles with the Rams.
Yeah, for the Atlanta Falcons, who's going to be their quarterback? Will they draft one in this year's upcoming draft? Will they trade for a veteran? Will they sign a veteran, i.e. Kirk Cousins? Will they trade for Justin Fields, who could be on the trade market from Chicago. We'll see what happens, but we talked about it before, Lakina, about the talent around that Falcons offense. I believe Drake London, who they drafted a couple years ago, he could be a future stud wide receiver. You drafted Bijan Robinson, their running back, who just finished up his rookie year out of the University of Texas. You have Kyle Pitts, who you didn't use last year in the second half of last year, so he needs to be unleashed. So you do have some talent around. Actually, their defense is not too bad. I know Bears fans can get out of us and say, look what that Bears offense did to that terrible Falcons defense. Yeah, I get it, but there's still some talent on that Falcons defense. That secondary is not too bad. Now, they could use an extra pass rusher as well, but as far as the offense is concerned, what quarterback is going to lead that team, and will it be the quarterback that new head coach Raheem Morris wants?
They may have to go to the draft again to get a QB, and so it'll be interesting what happens over there down there in Atlanta. Carolina has made Joe Brady its new OC. Now to the Panthers, Dan Morgan, of course, being hired as their new GM, and also too they found their new head guy, and Mr. Dave Canales, of course, who was the Panthers. The Panthers, of course, he was actually in Tampa with Coach Morris. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do with Bryce Young, if he can do anything with Bryce Young, because we saw what he did with Geno Smith. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I think this is more about a couple of things. This is more about the philosophy of the new head coach, what it's going to be, especially on offense. And number two, you mentioned that with that new GM, Dan Morgan, I remember him as a player. That's how old I am as well. But
me too.
They're going to have to use the draft in every which way because they don't have many picks. I know they just about mortgaged the future around this time last year from Chicago to trading DJ Moore and those picks over to the Brian Poles and the Bears. But who's going to be their number one wide receiver? Who's going to be their new running back? We don't know. But Bryce Young, as I told you, Lakina, even though I saw a couple of times in college, I thought he was going to be an okay player. We saw his struggles this past year. It wasn't all his fault. They got to fix their offensive line as well, by the way. But Carolina, they still need to build the infrastructure. Yes, you have to have that franchise quarterback, which I believe Bryce Young will eventually be. But those other parts around it, they got to have a solid foundation. Right now, Carolina just does not have it.
They really don't. They got a lot of work to do down there in Carolina. So we'll see if Canales could be the guy there. Of course, Las Vegas, the Raiders, they hire Antonio Pierce full-time as their coach. It's about time. They also found themselves a new GM, former Chargers GM, Tom Telesco. That'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, speaking of the Chargers, they found their new head guy that is he's coming off a national championship, and Jim Harbaugh. If you saw his interview that the CBS NFL Today crew did with him yesterday, he said as much as he loved Michigan, Michigan will always be his home, but he missed being in the NFL. And I feel like he has a lot to prove still in the league.
Yeah, I remember when he coached in the NFL the first time many years ago with the San Francisco 49ers. He came a couple of big plays away from beating the Baltimore Ravens in that 2012 Super Bowl down there in New Orleans. Yes, that same Super Bowl when the lights went out. But
yeah, literally.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was more because of Beyonce and her former bandmates and Destiny's Child had a lot to do with that, but that's a whole nother issue. But Harbaugh, wherever he goes, he wins. And we saw that when he was in the NFL the first time with the San Francisco 49ers. He found a hidden talent at the time in Colin Kaepernick. He made Alex Smith a more serviceable quarterback, eventually trading him to Kansas City after that Super Bowl season. Jim Harbaugh has the pedigree. He's a former player. He knows what to do. He knows how to win. And with this situation with the Chargers, he has a franchise quarterback already in place. His name is Justin Herbert. But remember, management paid him all that money before the start of the season. So the Chargers are going to have potentially some salary cap issues, especially on defense. You have some older players, i.e. Khalil Mack and a couple of others. So that Chargers front office is going to have a lot of work to do, but I don't think they're that far away from being a playoff team. They're not. They were just in the playoffs the year before they blew that lead in Jacksonville. So they're going to have some work to do around the salary cap because you're paying your franchise quarterback now and Herbert, but I don't think they're far away from being the playoff team. Now, of course, the goal for every team is win the Super Bowl. Can they make some moves to get them to that next level? We shall see.
Gonna be very interesting. It'll be very fascinating over there in Los Angeles. Of course, Ken Dorsey is now the new OC over in Cleveland, and the Eagles have found their new coordinators and a couple of veterans. They got Kellen Moore, who was just hired yesterday as a new OC, and the new DC is a familiar name to us Bears fans, Mr. Vic Fangio, who left Miami to now he's with Nick Sirianni and the Eagles. That should be an interesting duo of coordinators.
Yeah, we talked about the struggles of that Philadelphia defense this year. Loses of their last 6 games, including their playoff loss at Tampa. That Eagles defense gave up over close to 32 points a game. That's not gonna cut it. Hassan Reddick is one of the best young pass rushers in the league. We saw that last year when the Philadelphia Eagles made it to the Super Bowl against Kansas City. He regressed this year. I know there was some injuries there too on the defensive front last year, but we'll see what type of schemes that Vic Fangio comes up with this group. We'll see what the management does of trying to insert some new talent on their front line this week, because remember, they're paying Jalen Hurts that big money, so they got to be careful what type of plays that they give you free agency as well.
Yeah, they may have to build through their draft, so it'll be interesting to see what happens, and maybe even some trades too. So, going to get a little interesting over there in Philly, and Brian Callahan has been named the new Titans head coach. He is the son, of course. Excuse me, I can't talk there, but he was with Ron Rivera for a few years. He now brings that experience on defense to the NFL. So he's a son of Bill Callahan. Bill Callahan was a veteran NFL coach. So interesting. Interesting. What will happen over there down there in Nashville?
Yeah, who's the future starting quarterback going to be? Will it be Will Levis, who looked great in the last few games of this past season? Will Malik Willis get a shot at the starting quarterback next year? Is this Ryan Tannehill's last swan song? The same thing with running back Derrick Henry. We'll see what his offensive philosophy is with those 2 quarterbacks I just mentioned. Will they be part of the future plans for Tennessee? We'll see.
Going to be very interesting down there in Nashville as well. And of course, two coaching jobs are still undecided. You got Seattle; they're still looking for a new head coach, but they may have a couple of names that are still playing right now. And I believe Washington still doesn't have their coach either. But there were rumors that maybe Mike McDonald, of course, could be going to Seattle, and Ben Johnson might be going to Washington. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll see if that happens. Of course, these are 2 weeks where they're around the time that you can now interview them. So they may be filling their spots. The last 2 spots for among NFL coaches that are no longer that don't have coaches just yet.
Mm-hmm. I want to bring this up with you, Lakina, in our audience before we close out of the first hour. I heard a rumor somewhere over the weekend that should the Chiefs win the Super Bowl 2 weeks from yesterday, and if Andy Reid decides to retire, and Bill Belichick, we all know, didn't get the Atlanta head coaching job, should Bill Belichick sit out this upcoming season? Assume that Andy Reid retires if they win 2 weeks from yesterday, and all of a sudden Andy Reid retires. I don't think he's going to go anywhere anytime soon, but then again, you never know. But let's just assume that Kansas City wins 2 weeks in 2 weeks, and Andy Reid decides to quit. If you're Bill Belichick, would you take over the Kansas City Chiefs because you already have a star quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, or will you wait until what happens with the Dallas Cowboys next year, assuming that Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys team falls on his face once again?
I mean, like I said, I can't see win or lose. I can't see Andy Reid retiring. I just don't see that him doing that anytime soon. And I mean, I just don't think it would be a good fit over there in KC with Belichick. I just don't see it. If I were Coach B, I probably would go to the TV booth or go to the TV studio for a little bit and see what happens down there in Dallas. I think that's really his dream, especially since he didn't get that Atlanta job.
So you would think that if you were Bill Belichick, you just go do media if you can for a year and then watch what happens with Dallas. Because I'm with you. I don't see Andy Reid retiring soon. Like I say, eventually he will retire and step down, but I just don't see it. Not yet. Maybe about another 2 or 3 years, but not now.
Yeah, I mean, if the Chiefs continue this wrong and they win, like I said, win or lose, I don't think he's going to retire, this year especially. But I think maybe the next couple of years I can kind of see him doing that. But it's gonna get interesting. I mean, I haven't heard anything about him wanting the job down there in Kansas City, but yeah, I mean, I would say just wait and see what happens with Dallas. That's probably what I would do if I were him.
All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 just around the corner as you're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports or Sports Zone Chicago. NBA basketball, the Chicago Bulls come up big in the City of Roses against the bad Portland Trail Blazers team. We may have watched the greatest NBA game this season last Saturday night between the Warriors and the Nuggets. Of course, college basketball, both the Northwestern and Defiant Illini get back on track. And Lakina will give her Australian Open update / recap. And we'll have Old School TV Monday and a whole lot more. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know, though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kenny McGee on the Twitter, X. I can't go again, the IG.
We have less than 55 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any opinions, questions, or comments, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook and Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
As you guys saw in the little scroll there, we are going to be going into some Bulls talk.
Was at the center of all of that. Tip won by Dosumu, and he jams it. Good defender as well. Oh, there's Phillips!
Oh, my goodness!
Simons into traffic, and Carter did a good job of securing it. White on the push. Oh, what a feed to Vucevic! Nice. The rest of the unit on the drive. Terry, nice rip. Stacey,
turnover,
sign. Defense there from Terry. Out to Caruso.
Got a good look at it, though.
He did. Oh, Drummond's there.
Go give it up.
Lob, Kobe White to the cup. Back to Drummond.
I said Julian Phillips. Somebody's going to come to the ball on the backside.
They rotate to Vucevic. 5 to shoot. Ayo Dosunmu.
Oh, game time. Ayo.
And those highlights are, of course, were from NBC Sports Chicago. Of course, that was Adam and me. And happy birthday, Stacey King! The birthday boy with the call there. I mean, we really did not do too much. I mean, with the Bulls, I know the score looks a little bit closer, but the Bulls dominated this game pretty much from start to finish. You saw, DeRozan had 20 points, Vooch had 14, and Kobe White had 15. Despite only being 1 for 9 from 3, I'm a little bit worried about that. But he had some great contributions from the bench. Ayo Dosunmu kicked in with 11 points, and in lieu of Zach, of course, Andre Drummond had 15 points, and Julian Phillips. We saw Julian Phillips out there. 11 points. He's a career high. So a really good showing by the Bulls against a team that they were supposed to beat. So there you go.
As we said on our shows last week, the Bulls had a tough stretch going down on the road to the West Coast, and the way they lost that game to Phoenix, that kind of set them back. And what really set them back was giving up 142 points last Thursday at Los Angeles against the Lakers. As we said before, we all know that LeBron James especially is motivated when he plays the Chicago Bulls. But as you said, the Bulls took care of business against a lesser opponent last night in the Portland Trail Blazers without Zach LaVine, without P. Will, a.k.a. Patrick Williams, for those of you scoring at home. But here's a couple of things that concerns me, Lakina, before people get all a little cranky at me. Couple things. One, the Bulls did not shoot the ball well from the outside, i.e. the three-point range at 25%, despite them winning the game. But I don't know about you, Lakina. Maybe you can tell me I'm overreacting. I don't know. But we talked about Nikolai Vucevic. I know he had 14 and 7 last night, but he was 0 for 4 from three-point range. And we talked about his struggles last week on the show, too. Is it time for Bulls fans to start worrying about him? Like we've been begging for the last couple of years, when he has the matchups in the post, feed the ball to him. They've been doing that throughout this season, especially when Zach was out during the month of December. You saw him and everybody else's game raise up to another level. But I'm getting these weird vibes that Vucevic, I know he's a great outside shooter, but I get the feeling that you rather do that than go in the post. Maybe it's just me overreacting. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I think you overreacted a little bit. I mean, look, we know Vooch is actually one of those few big guys that can shoot the ball well from both the inside and the outside. He is more comfortable on the outside. The only problem is that he has been hitting those shots lately. So I think that's probably why you and some other Bulls fans are concerned. But I think
fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, and like I said, Kobe, I'm more concerned with his 3-point or lack of 3-point. He was only 1 for 9 last night, but thankfully he didn't need to do that against Portland. So I'm I'm not too concerned about that for right now. But I think we all know with shooters, especially in the long season like the NBA, it's going to take you a while to kind of snap out of it. So I'm a little, I mean, I'm not too crazy about it. I mean, hopefully both Vooch and Kobe can kind of snap out of it. They play the Raptors tomorrow, so they've had the Raptors number in the last couple of years, so maybe they can kind of get it going there. But I feel like, look, like I said on Friday, the Bulls schedule kind of set up for them to get some wins against some very tough opponents. So the 3-point range, you want to just hope they can snap out of it. But I'm not too concerned, at least not just yet.
The schedule for the Bulls, as Lakina mentioned, set up for them like this week. They'll host the Toronto Raptors at the United Center tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Wednesday night, they'll go back on the road just for a pit stop at Charlotte against the Hornets before returning home to the United Center on Saturday against the Sacramento Kings. Lakina is going to be tough, especially without P. Will and Zach LaVine. You would think they could still get the victories against these subpar opponents within these next 2 games. Toronto, we all know they traded OJ Anunoby to the New York Knicks in exchange for RJ Barrett, who's been doing a heck of a job for Toronto, by the way. But they still have young players like Scotty Barnes who could really light it up. And Charlotte, we all know they're just terrible. The Bulls own them too. So the Bulls is going to be tough without their two key stars, but I still expect them to come out with 2 victories. Is that too much for me to ask at this point?
No. I think these are 2 teams that they should beat because it gets tougher with Sacramento and Minnesota back to back. So it's like I said, just get the wins that you can get, and you can worry about those next 2 games after that later. So for me, I think just take care of business. Don't look far ahead to those matches with the Kings and the T-Wolves, and then you can work on what you need to do to beat at least one of those teams, which I think they can. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Go through the rest of the schedule from yesterday, Sunday, in the middle of Championship Sunday. Congrats to Kevin Durant. He becomes the 9th player to get to 28,000 points. Unfortunately, the Suns have now lost 2 in a row. They lose to Orlando 113-98. 4 for 14 for 3. So that's kind of what's been killing the Suns. I know on Friday they didn't shoot the ball well from 3. So the 3-pointer, speaking of keeping with the theme, the 3-point shot's been an issue for them too.
And also, to the Orlando Magic outscored them by 18 points in that fourth quarter, 31-13. So, as we talked about before, looks like Phoenix is starting to turn around. But as you mentioned, they struggled shooting from the outside these last couple of games, and it showed, especially last night, and they lost on the road at Orlando. On the flip side, for the Magic, they started off hot to start the year, but they're come back down to earth a little bit. They're still around the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. So the season would end today. They'll be in the play-in tournament, but I'm not going to predict their downfall just yet because the teams around them in the middle of that pack, in the end of that pack in the Eastern Conference, are struggling. We know that the Bulls got a big win last night, but look at the teams around Orlando in that 7 to 10 spot. Miami, I know they got scary Terry Rozier, but they haven't figured it out yet. Indiana looks like they want to stay out of that 7th spot, so they don't have to participate in that play-in tournament. And look at Brooklyn; they've really taken a nosedive.
Well, look, going back to the Bulls for a second, this is one of the reasons why the Bulls are, still where they are, because most of the teams around them are even worse, or just right at their level, or even worse. So, sorry for all you Bulls fans that were hoping to make some big trades. And it looks like that's not happening. But a nice win for Orlando last night. They're starting to kind of get it together. Paulo Banchero's been really solid. I wouldn't be surprised if he's named on the All-Star reserve. So we'll see what happens with that later this week. Atlanta edged out Toronto. Speaking of the Bulls' next opponents. By 3. Indiana edged out Memphis 116-110. I got some good news too about Tyrese Halliburton. He might be back tonight for their matchup against Boston. So that should be that'll be interesting. Tuesday, against Boston. So that might Tuesday's match, I should say, against tomorrow's match, I should say, against Boston. So that should be interesting there. Detroit with a nice little upset win over OKC.
Yeah, congratulations to the Pistons. Looks like Monty Williams and crew are starting to turn around a little bit. If you're an Oklahoma City fan, I'm not too worried about this. Yes, it's a bad loss. It's a long season, but I don't think it's going to derail that young ball club going down. So even though we're about the end of the first half, we'll be ending the first half of the season schedule-wise in a couple of weeks. But, yeah, it was a bad loss on rough OKC, but I'm not too worried if you're an OKC fan.
No. Look, I think they're going to learn that you're going to have these kinds of losses. It happens. So, I think Thunder fans shouldn't be screaming the sky is falling. So, but yeah, going into Saturday's matchups, we'll do this one first. The Kings beat the Mavs 120-115. But definitely the game of the night, and probably the game of the year so far. The Lakers edged out the Warriors in double overtime, 145-144. LeBron had 36 points. Steph Curry had 46, a season high for Steph there. It was definitely back and forth between the two. And the teams themselves had a nice little go at it for a little bit. And you saw what happened afterwards. It was a nice little embrace between LeBron and Steph. This is the first time in NBA history that opposing players 35 or older scored 35 plus points in the game. So the fact that these two are still doing their thing at their respective ages, it's just not to show them astounding.
And also, too, LeBron James played 48 minutes, including those 2 overtimes. So we worried about LeBron at his age at 39 coming into the year. How many minutes can he log a night? He logged obviously more than he should have, but like you mentioned, that game was back and forth. On the flip side for the Warriors, Steph Curry was making every big shot they known to mankind. Klay Thompson kind of he was disappearing that here and there. Draymond Green actually made a difference in that game, positively, distributing the ball, being that facilitator, being that emotional leader. Zegment, the one of those young guys for the Warriors, I really like the way he's been playing right now. Jonathan Kuminga is, ever since he called out Steve Kerr about a week or so ago, his play is starting to turn up. I know he had back-to-back 30-point games as of last week, as we talked about on this show. So looks like some of the young guys are starting to turn it around. I know Chris Paul didn't play. He's sitting out due to injury. But on the flip side for the Lakers, they made some big shots. I know Anthony Davis got nicked up again. I know he did eventually return. But D'Angelo Russell, as we made fun of him on this show all year, he's continuing to have his hot shooting streak continue. So he made some big buckets as well. Austin Reeves, he missed a big free throw, but it didn't matter. He still had a big game. So all around, the Lakers shot the ball well overall, at a 48.5% clip. I know they didn't shoot that ball that much well as a team from three, but they made the big shots when they had to, and they made some key stops when they had to as well, including their last possession.
That game
was the second overtime.
Yeah, they got that. You can question whether or not that was a foul or not. I think it is what it is. I know LeBron made the free throws, and that kind of sealed the win for the Warriors. The Spurs upset the T-Wolves 113-112. Devin Vessel had 25 points for the Spurs. Milwaukee, no trouble with the Pelicans. Utah pulled away from the Hornets. The Clippers, pound the Celtics, and look, this wasn't as bad as a couple of weeks ago. With the Celtics got their butts kicked, but like I said, you're gonna have these games at least once every few weeks in the long season. But you give the Clippers credit; they're starting to kind of get it going. They're 30-14 as we're recording this. A key year, I think, PG had 17, Kawhi had 28, leading the way there. This despite Harden struggling from both the field and being over. So the fact that they were still able to do this. So that's sort of more, but look, they had some they had contributions from their guys. Dale Tice, who I still wish to this day wasn't still the Bulls uniform. God,
me too.
Right? Like, my goodness, curses. But he's been contributing. He had 16 points off the bench, but it was one of the bench players that kind of got things going for the Clippers. They were able to beat the Celtics pretty good.
I watched the majority of this game via this computer screen before the Lakers and Warriors game was airing on ABC. And let's be real too. The Clippers got out to that hot start thanks to their hot shooting and them being aggressive on defense. It was just one of those. It was just one of those games from Boston. I know they struggled They started off hot at home, winning their first 20 games, I believe, at home to start the year. They lost two of their last three or two of their last four home games. And so it's kind of a tough stretch for Boston right now. I'm not going to sit here and say the sky is falling, but it's just, for them, I think they're looking forward to for the All-Star break to begin in a couple of weeks here. I know the trade deadline, I believe, is not next week, but 2 weeks from this coming Thursday. 2 weeks from this coming Thursday, the All-Star break will be in 3 weeks. So, as we said before, we'll see what Boston does at the trade deadline to bolster up their bench. But in my opinion, I don't think their bench is strong enough and deep enough to compete with the Milwaukees, with the Philadelphias, and perhaps with the New York Knicks. We have some news on them we'll get to in just a second. But I don't think that Boston, they're a very good team. They're stacked from 1 through 7, but you need a couple more guys to be those difference makers especially come playoff time.
Special, and look how long I've been saying about Boston, their lack of depth. We saw some of those games where they got their butts kicking. So yeah, that's hopefully they'll figure it out. Hopefully Brad Stevens can make a couple of moves. We'll see. It'll be interesting. Saturday, continue with Saturday night's results. The Nets edge out the Rockets. I want to talk about this game real quick too, because I saw a little bit of this game before Lakers and Warriors. The Nuggets beat Sixers, and unfortunately, there was no Joel Embiid. So it was like the third or fourth time that Embiid has not played Denver.
And I turned the channel.
yeah, exactly. 26, another triple double from Mr. Jokic. Paul Reed had a career high 30 for the Sixers. So, but unfortunately, it really wasn't enough for the Sixers to keep up with the defending champs.
Yeah, the defending champions, as you mentioned, the Denver Nuggets, they were at home. Of course, they benefited greatly without Embiid being in that lineup. Give Philadelphia credit for the guys that usually don't play a lot. They took advantage of their extra minutes. They actually made a game out of it. You could have made that argument that they could have won, but Denver had the home court advantage. They had the majority of their important guys healthy, and that's why they walked away with the win.
Yeah, Nicholas Batum, 0 points. Leaving that, moving on. Another good game here. The Knicks beat the Heat 125-109. Jimmy Butler, his first game back, had 28 points, but Jalen Brunson had 32. But there was some Julius Randle landed on very awkwardly on his shoulder, but it looks like he was able to avoid any serious injury, so he might only be gone maybe 3 weeks instead of maybe 2-3 months. So if you're the Knicks, you're very happy about that. And the Heat, we talked about the Heat earlier, Sid. I mean, they just I don't know what's going on over there in South Beach.
Yeah, like we mentioned, they picked up scary Terry Rozier from Charlotte in exchange for Kyle Lowry last week. We'll see what happens with Rozier as he tries to implement himself into that Miami Heat culture and how he's going to be used offensively to help out Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, as you mentioned. But watching some of that game, they struggled offensively. It looks like they didn't have any identity. On the flip side, for the Knicks, before that injury, Julius Randle was having a game. We talked about Jalen Brunson. I know some people may have thought he got snubbed as being a starter for the Eastern Conference All-Stars for the All-Star game. He has improved his statistics from last year with his first year with the team. So the Knicks, there could be one scary team come playoff time. We said this last year. And of course, they had suffered injuries during the playoffs. But this Julius Randle injury will set them back a bit. Thank goodness he's not going to be out too long. But if the Knicks just could play around 500 until Randle returns, I think they'll be all right.
Be very interesting. The Wizards beat Detroit. Going into Friday's games, you got Portland. The Spurs beating Portland. OKC beating the Pelicans. And the Cavs beat the Bucks 112-100. Donovan Mitchell had 32 points. Giannis only had 22. Look, I've been saying the defensive effort for the Bucks. I mean, look, Drew Holiday over in Boston. Unfortunately, you give up 112 points because a pretty solid Cavs team is starting to figure things out, and their guys are getting healthy. But yeah, I mean Milwaukee, yeah.
Yeah, Doc Rivers has a lot of work to do. I don't know how much he's going to get done between now and the start of the playoffs, kind of in mid-April. But he has a lot of work to do.
It may not have a lot of time to fix it, but
there you go.
See. Yeah, right. I mean, we'll see what happens. Memphis edge out Orlando. The Clippers are, like I said, they're starting to get figure things out. They beat Toronto by 20. 133-131. Phoenix loses to the Pacers. This is despite Obi Toppin hit the game winner for the Pacers. And and unfortunately, look, we've been talking about the Suns lately and their like I said, their 3-point shooting. I mean, they actually shot the ball better from 3, but this is despite Devin Booker having 62 points. Didn't get a lot from the other guys, and yeah, I mean, look, to the Pacers' credit, they were able to outshoot the Suns.
Call me crazy, Lakina. Going back to this Phoenix Suns, who's the head coach? Frank Vogel, correct?
Yes.
What's his specialty?
Defense.
And what's been the Suns' problem besides their lack of 3-point shooting? Defense.
Defense. Yes.
I think I pretty much saw the Suns' problems, folks, outside of injuries. But you saw with the Suns in their last 2 games on their East Coast road trip. There hasn't been any defense played whatsoever, and which is contributing to their lack of success on the outside with their outside shooting. So we talk putting health aside. Right. They need to get back to defense, and then and other things will come. But if you're struggling offensively, what gets you back in the game? Defense, and the offense will start to come back naturally. So the Suns need to get back some sort of competency of knowing how to play team defense.
Yeah, they're kind of going off the Yeah, it's like I mean, you hope that they can fix it. I'm sure they can, but yeah, I mean, these last couple of games, I mean, if you're KD, you're not very happy with what's going on at the moment. So hopefully they can get it together there on the defensive side. Houston, no trouble with the Hornets, and Dallas beat Atlanta, 73 points from Luka, which is a career high, but they only beat the Hawks by 5. Figure that out.
Yeah, if you're the Mavericks, we said this last year. Like you worry about the fatigue factor for Luka Doncic. He's their point guard. He's Mr. Playmaker. He's Mr. Everything for that team. I know you got Kyrie at your hip, but how much longer can you let Luka dominate like that, scoring 73 points? He's going to be tired before March. You need him to rest up before the playoffs.
Well, we said that the last couple years about him that endurance is a problem for him, and look, we saw what happened last year. They kind of just ran out of gas. That's how the Mavs end up missing the playoffs. If they don't keep on, then perhaps maybe he may have to take some games off. Maybe
he did that last year.
Yeah, like he may have to take 2 or 3 games off here and there. Look, he himself said that he needs to work on his endurance and work on his flexibility and his more muscle. So yeah, I mean that might still be look out for. But yeah, I mean, look, we've had like another 2 70-point games and 2 60-point games. I've got in the latter case, they lost. That's the first time it's happened since the 77-78 season with George Iceman Gervin and of course David Thompson. They both that was in April on the same night, ironically. But on the 60-point side. But yeah, I mean, Luka, oh boy. No, that's what the Jason Kidd's gonna have to figure out, so we'll see.
Yeah. You listen to Second City Sports on the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you. Again, before we close out this segment, before we hit the break, let's go over the schedule for this upcoming week. For this upcoming week, we'll start out with tonight's games. Monday, we'll have the New York Knicks taking on the Charlotte Hornets without Julius Randle. Of course, the LA Clippers will continue. We'll continue their East Coast road trip. They'll visit Cleveland tonight to take on the Cavaliers. We'll have the New Orleans Pelicans visiting Boston to play the Celtics. We'll have Utah at Brooklyn, Phoenix and Miami, the first game of the Monday night NBA TV doubleheader. We'll have the Lakers starting their Granby road trip. They'll take on the Houston Rockets. Houston's beaten once this year. Sacramento and Memphis. Minnesota at Oklahoma City, the top 2 teams in the Western Conference and perhaps in the NBA. I wish that game was on NBA TV, but I digress. We have Washington and San Antonio, 2 of the worst teams in the association. Orlando visits Dallas. Milwaukee will face Denver. That should be interesting. Hopefully I can get some of that via this computer screen. And the nightcap on NBA TV's Monday night doubleheader, Philadelphia will visit Portland.
Yeah, that Milwaukee-Denver game is going to be very interesting, as is that Clippers-Cleveland matchup. That should be a high scoring. I would say take the over on that one, just saying. Going into tomorrow's matchups, Tuesday, you got the Lakers and the Hawks. The first game of the TNT Tuesday doubleheader, you got Indiana and Boston. That should be a good one there. Utah and the Knicks. Toronto and Chicago, of course, we mentioned that earlier at 7 tomorrow. And Philadelphia and Golden State. That's the second game of that TNT doubleheader. That should be a fun one.
Hopefully, Joel Embiid will return for that one because that'll be the second game of that back-to-back for Philadelphia. Going into Wednesday's action, we'll have the Bulls visiting Charlotte, as we mentioned earlier. Detroit will visit Cleveland. The Clippers will continue their road trip visiting our nation's capital to take on the Washington Wizards. Sacramento will visit South Beach in the Miami Heat. New Orleans will play Houston. Dallas will visit Minnesota. This should be a great one. Orlando at San Antonio. Denver at Oklahoma City, a good but underrated matchup. The Wednesday night game on ABC will have the Phoenix Suns at the Brooklyn Nets. Oh boy. And the nightcap on ESPN will have Milwaukee at Portland.
Yeah, you wonder what the ABC schedulers were thinking about that matchup for Wednesday. I digress. The 1st of February on Thursday, you got the Lakers and the Celtics, 2 old rivals, matching up here. The first game of a triple header on TNT. Don't ask me how they're going to do this. This will be at 6:30. Pacers and Knicks at 6:30. The second game, well, I guess this is regional coverage. I don't know how they're doing this. The Cavs and the Grizzlies at 7, and of course the 9 o'clock game, I should say, on TNT. You got the Sixers and the Jazz as they continue their West Coast road trip.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that Indiana Knicks game. I know the Knicks will not have Julius Randle, but as we talked about before, once Randle returns, the battle between the 4th, 5th, and 6th spots in the Eastern Conference will get interesting. Remember, you have Miami's hanging around. Cleveland, they caught fire for the last month as they started to get guys back healthy, i.e. Donovan Mitchell, i.e. Darius Garland. And you have the Indiana Pacers, as we said before, a couple of weeks ago, they acquired Pascal Siakam via trade from the Toronto Raptors. They can score with the best of them. Can they play any defense? You know, Rick Carlisle, especially in today's NBA, you got to play some defense, and the Pacers are not known for that. They can score with the rest of them, but they got to play some type of defense.
It'll be interesting to see if they do make the playoffs, how far they can go with that. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. It's interesting too because, of course, that's been his specialty, throughout his coaching career on the coaching side is defense. So yeah, that's going to be something the Bears are going to have to do. Although they do get some good news, Tyrese Haliburton, he could be back tonight. So something to look out for. Tuesday, I should say, tomorrow night with that Celtics matchup coming up. So that should be interesting. There, and that's your schedule for this week in the NBA.
When we return, we'll review college basketball's pipe flight action from over the weekend. The Fighting Illini get a big win against the Indiana Hoosiers, while Northwestern takes care of the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll have Lakina's Australian Open tennis wrap up, and we'll have Old School TV Monday and a whole lot more. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. We're live and they live in color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. Lakina will be rejoining me in just a moment. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find Makita McGee on the Twitter, X, Akita's going in the IG.
We have less than 25 minutes left for this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or opinions for us, this is your last chance to do it for today's show. You can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can get Sports Zone Chicago 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand on Roku TV.
Okay, Sid, let's go to college hoops. We're about 7 weeks away from Selection Sunday, and I think you're seeing a lot of teams, beating each other up in the various conferences, especially in the bigger conferences. I know that Illinois had a little bit of a fight on Saturday. So what do you think about that game on Saturday? Because Indiana, it's a shout out to our buddy Matt Zahn from CBS to Chicago. We got to get him
friend of
back
the
on.
show.
Yes, got to get him back on. Absolutely. The Hoosiers did not shoot a single three, and they were, I believe, they were like about 18% from the free throw line. They were actually right there with the Atlanta from right there near the end of the half, near the end of the game, I should say. And unfortunately, they weren't able to close it out. Unfortunately, if you watch Indiana this year, this has kind of been a theme for them. They don't shoot the ball from three, and the free throws are just bad. So yeah, Illinois. Look, every once in a while, gotta have one of those games where you kind of back into one.
Yeah, for the final line, it was important for them to get back on track as far as the win column was concerned because of what happened last Wednesday night at Evanston against the Fighting Northwestern Wildcats. Illinois didn't start off shooting the ball very well. They missed 14 in their first 17 shots. They got it together to end it strongly in that first half, which should have been double digits in my opinion, but they let Indiana hang around. But it was during the last, I believe, the last 8 to 10 minutes of that game, Illinois started to turn it up defensively, and they made some key buckets down the stretch. Marcus Dozmak had 16 points. Coleman Hawkins chipped in with the 11. So you did get some balanced scoring for the final line. 3 of their 5 starters were in double digits. And Terrence Shannon Jr. continuing to make his mark. Hopefully he can play for the rest of the season. We'll see what happens with him at the end of February when his temporary order is up. But you can tell he's making a huge impact on this fight in the line team, not only with his athleticism, but with his energy as well.
Absolutely, and Illinois is right there near the top of that Big Ten, so they got some games coming up. So we'll see what happens, what they do for that one. But yeah, it's gonna get interesting in the Big Ten, especially going into yesterday's games. Of course, Memphis again loses to UAB. They've lost about like 4 in a row or something. I don't know what's going on down there in Memphis, but Penny Hardaway better figure it out because they're. Like I said, that American Conference is there for the taking, so and they're not taking advantage of it.
They gave up too many offensive rebounds yesterday. That was the main factor in the game.
New Mexico, no trouble with Nevada in the Mountain West. FAU, they pulled away from North Texas to fighting Layla Rahimis. As we, another friend of the show from, of course, NBC Chicago, and then of course the score. Purdue, no trouble with Rutgers. UConn is just hammering their team, their opponents right now. They beat Xavier, no trouble with Xavier. I think that's Xavier's worst loss. I think like about 30 years almost. So yeah, it looks like this team's actually even better than last year's team who won a national championship.
Yeah, and we talk about parity in college basketball. UConn could do it again. Am I going to put some money on them? No, because as you said before. You can go on one bad streak and that could be it for you. As you can see, there's about 6, in my opinion, 6 to 8, maybe 10. I'm probably stretching a little bit, but at least between 6 to maybe 8 teams that can win this thing. And I know we'll go through some of the scores from Saturday in a sec, but you can legitimately make a case for, like I said, up to 8 teams win this whole thing.
Well, let's talk about one of them right now. North Carolina knocked out Florida State from the race, undefeated in the ACC by 6 points, 7 points, should I say, 75-68. RJ Davis led the way with 24 for North Carolina.
Yeah, we talk about North Carolina having studs there, and head coach Hubert Davis is doing a fine job. Unlike last year when they missed the tournament due to injuries and inconsistent plays and whatnot, their big guys are starting to step up, and you're starting to see them play more as a cohesive unit, more gelling together. So North Carolina is going to be a tough outcome tournament time if they continue to play like this.
Another team that could be another tough out if they're shooting the ball well is Houston. They beat K-State 74-52. Jamal Sheed had 17 points, a name that some people probably might not have heard of, but I think you probably don't know his name.
Illinois heard of him last year. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. I mean, he's definitely been a stalwart the last couple of years for that Houston squad. So he's continuing to do just that. And of course, we talk about Dr. Nett from Tennessee. No trouble with Jerry Stackhouse and his Vanderbilt Commodores. Kentucky pulled away from Arkansas. Iowa State beats Kansas 79-75. Trey King had 21 points. And I've said this about Kansas. Look, that lack of depth on their bench is really becoming a problem. And we're seeing these next trade games. And plus, the Big 12 is showing that they're the best conference in the country.
Yeah, Iowa State got that big important win. I was able to watch a little bit of this game via my television screen. Nice job by Ian Eagle. He was going to be the new TV voice for college basketball on CBS as he replaces Jim Nantz. But I want to talk about one important statistic about this game, Lakina, and that was the offensive rebounds. I know it was 11-10 for Kansas, but Iowa grabbed some key rebounds late down the stretch. They did the little things to help them win. Kansas dominated that game from a statistical standpoint, but it was the little things that Iowa State did. Iowa State did that helped them win that game. Check out this number, Lakina. The 3-point percentage. Kansas shot it at a 35% clip. You figure, that's decent. You can win you have a chance to win the game. It's in today's times, but no. Iowa State shot it at a 46% clip, 14-30. That should tell you something.
Yeah, they're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country. Talk about Iowa State, and they put that on display. Yeah, Kansas, did dominate on the inside and then around the perimeter, but it was a 3-point shooting that kind of got them late, and that's, like I said, that's been a problem in addition with the lack of depth. So could be something that Bill Self's gonna have to figure out before March. You got about 7 weeks to figure it out. So hopefully, he can do that. Mississippi State beat Auburn. They're putting together a nice little resume. Much as I know Sid's happiness there. Arizona, Caleb Love with 36 points, a season high. They have no trouble with Oregon. Texas Tech, they're now the top of the Big 12. Speaking of, they edged out Porter Moses, Oklahoma Sooners, 85-84. And here's a young coach's name that you're going to be hearing a lot for some of the bigger jobs. Grant McCaslin. He's been able to kind of keep that cohesive unit together with all the weirds that happened last year near the end of the season for Texas Tech, and they've added some JUCO transfers, and they're putting together a nice little resume. Look, Chance McMillan, 27 points, one of the top scorers in the Big 12, and Tech could be a team that I'm not gonna say they're gonna go back to the Final Four, but they're a team that they're not gonna be pushed around.
Yeah, you're talking about a team like that is doing it quietly and perhaps arguably the best conference in the country next to the Big Ten. And you mentioned that's Texas Tech. So like I said, we'll see. It's hard to repeat a run from a different group of guys that went to the Final Four, as you mentioned, about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not saying it's not possible for them to do, but they got to get through that gauntlet of the Big 12, as we talked about before. You got to fight by at least 4 or 5, maybe perhaps 6 teams to get a top seed there. They'll make the tournament, no doubt. I know they were ranked 20th as of that game on Saturday, but they're going to have to. As long as they stay consistent, I think they'll be okay. But they really had to jump over 2 or 3 teams, in my opinion, to be in that top spot, which would be very difficult to do.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but they got some tough games coming up this week. Well, as usually is in the Big 12. Duke just edged out Clemson. That was a nice win for John Shire and his guys. Marquette just dominated Seton Hall. TCU in a triple overtime thriller over Baylor. I saw a little bit of this game. That was just it's a great game. Jameer Nelson Jr. Yeah, I know. Get ready to feel old, folks. Of course, we saw what his dad did back in the day for St. Joe's.
Yeah, him and Delonte West.
Yeah, he of course transferred to TCU. He's becoming a big, making a big statement there. He had 30 points, was a season high for him, and a very entertaining game down there in Waco.
Yeah, you mentioned with TCU, you talked about Jamie Dixon, their head coach. He's been around the block before with Pittsburgh, now with Texas Christian, for those of you scoring at home. Don't forget Kurt Thomas, the former NBA player. I think one time Chicago Bull went to that university as well back in the 90s. But we all know, you mentioned with TCU scoring, they can score with the best of them. We saw that on Saturdays. They mentioned they won in 3 overtimes. Baylor, they had some nice squads over the last few years. Didn't they make it to the Final Four about 3 years ago?
Won the championship 3 years ago.
Yeah, so not only they made it, they won it. So, like I said, they're trying to get back to that top spot as well. So, as we mentioned before, 1,000 times, we'll mention again 1,000 more times that Big 12 is up for grabs. And we go back to Kansas, Lakina. Let me talk about this, referring to that game against Iowa State. Can you use Hunter Dickerson a little bit more? Now, they did that. Speaking of that TCU game a couple weeks ago, they did that, and that was one of the reasons why they won. But they went away from him last Saturday afternoon at Iowa State.
Yeah, there's a reason why you got him there to kind of help, with the outside and also with the inside. So, they're going to have to use him a little bit more. And I think he's going to have to stay out of foul trouble, too. I think that's another kind of hindrance there. Richmond got their 10th win in a row. They upset Dayton. Creighton, no trouble with DePaul. I have nothing else to say. There's nothing you can say about DePaul at this point. You just hope that Dwayne Peavy can and Mark Aguirre, know he's over there now helping him out. So hopefully they can get the guy there. Hopefully we have somebody there to kind of tell us who they think should be new head coach over at DePaul. That's a whole different thing there. Utah State beat Boise State. BYU, speaking of the Big 12, they beat Texas. Wyoming upset Colorado State. They're putting a nice little resume there for them, and that's about it with the main stuff for college.
Oh, let's give Northwestern some love. 83-59 over the Ohio State Buckeyes. Of course, Boo Buie led the charge with 19 points, and then continue to build on their tournament resume. They're one of the top teams in the Big Ten next to Illinois and Purdue. But for Northwestern, one of the reasons why they beat Ohio State last Saturday is because they shot the ball at a 57% clip from the three-point range. And also, too, they took care of the basketball, only committing 7 turnovers to Ohio State's 11. So for this Northwestern team to continue, they're going to have to take care of the basketball and get some contributions offensively besides Boo Buie, who's the leader of the team. So Northwestern, as we talked about before, give head coach Chris Collins credit. He's a defensive guy. Northwestern will get after you defensively, but their offense is starting to open up a little bit more. You'll need that going to the latter stages of the season before conference tournament play will start in early March. Lakina, are you starting to take Northwestern seriously now? And they built out that win last Wednesday at home against Illinois. They took care of business against Ohio State. I think people should start taking them seriously now. They're not just a little engine that could anymore.
No, they're not, and I think that this is going to be very interesting to see what happens with that squad. And like I said, hopefully they can keep it up. If they can avoid the bad losses, that could be they'll be fine because don't give the committee a reason oh look you lost to Chicago State back in December before the holidays. So folks are going to get a little bit they're going to have to hopefully I'm sure they got a veteran squad. I got Boo Buie, who's been there forever it seems, and a whole lot more. So it's going to get interesting.
All right, let's take a look at the schedule from the top 25 in college basketball for this week. Of course, tonight on ESPN we'll have number 7 Duke visiting Virginia Tech. That's at 6 o'clock on ESPN. Of course, on CBS Sports Network, Boston University at Holy Cross. In the second game of the ESPN Monday night doubleheader, if I can get my computer screen to add up to
Big Monday.
Yeah, Big Monday. At 8 o'clock, we'll have number 4 Houston. The Cougars will visit Texas to take on the Longhorns. This should be fun.
Oh, that should be. Look, we know all the Big 12 games have been very interesting this year, so there shouldn't be any different. Going into tomorrow, Tuesday, you got Tennessee. They're at the top of the SEC right now. They host South Carolina. That's going to be on SEC Network. North Carolina meets Georgia Tech on ESPN. Marquette, they're beating Villanova on FS1. Right here on Peacock. Remember, all you guys are on Peacock. Illinois, they're going to road. They go against Ohio State. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, they lost there last year. Hopefully, they'll take care of business this year in Columbus.
Yeah, absolutely. That should be a fun one on TCU and Texas Tech on ESPN2. That should be interesting.
Yeah, continue with the Big Ten theme here. Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Big Ten Network. Both 12 and 8 teams, and both of them need wins desperately. Indiana, they'll play at home, hosting the Iowa Hawkeyes, I should say. Both teams, as I mentioned, 12 and 8. Both teams need a victory here.
Yeah, that might. I'm not gonna say it's an elimination just yet, but I think that this is gonna be very interesting to see what happens there in that game. Oklahoma and K-State also to stick with the Tuesday theme. K-State, they're putting together a nice little resume. I'm sure beating Oklahoma might help them there. Michigan State, they need another. Michigan State needs to kind of keep their resume going on Peacock. That's going to be streaming there. And Gonzaga meets Loyola Marymount. That's going to be at 10 o'clock tomorrow on ESPN.
For Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Big Ten Network, live from Chicago via Evanston. No, not from Evanston. Scratch that. Live from West Lafayette, Indiana. Number 2 Purdue will host Northwestern in Big Ten action. Purdue 19-2, Northwestern 15-5 on the year. This is another big test for Northwestern. They had one against Illinois last week, but it was at home. Now they got to go on the road, perhaps to face arguably the top team in the country in the Purdue Boilermakers.
I'm sure Purdue's going to want their revenge from earlier this season. So yeah, it's going to get interesting to see what happens with that.
Also, Alabama, number 24 Alabama will visit Georgia. That's at 5:30 p.m. on SEC Network. This is the key games for Wednesday. Baylor, number 18, Baylor will visit UCF. That's at 6 p.m. on the Big 12 ESPN Plus. Also, too, we will have, looking down at the schedule here, we will, this damn computer is messing me up, Lakina, but here's another game we look at. In SEC action, this is for Wednesday on ESPN, the main ESPN. Florida will visit number 10, Kentucky.
Yeah, that should be. There's always fun when those two teams play. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know Florida. I don't know if they're going to be a big factor here, but yeah, Florida's always going to give Kentucky a hard time. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. And a little bit of Missouri Valley Conference action for you. Sid 6-4 in their conference. They face Southern Illinois. They face Missouri State. That's going to be on ESPN Plus. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, a big game for the Salukis here, so they're trying to build up their resume. So they have the home court advantage. We'll see what they could do with that. Also, too, at the same time on ESPN Plus, Memphis will host a struggling 7-13 Rice team. As we mentioned, Penny Hardaway and crew has lost the last 3 games. They need to get back on track here as they're coming home.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need to get it together there if they want to try to get that resume thing going. UConn, they face Providence at 7:30 on FS1. And Auburn, they host Vanderbilt at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. And New Mexico, they meet Boise State. That should be a fun one in Albuquerque right at 9:30 on FS1.
All right, your top 25 action for Thursday as we enter the month of February. Number 6, Wisconsin will visit Nebraska at 7:30 on Big Ten Network. This is for Thursday. Of course, Wisconsin 16-4 on the year. Nebraska, Fred Hoiberg, the mayor and crew, his Cornhuskers are 15-6. I know they've been struggling lately out of the gate. And at 7:30 p.m. on the Pac-12 Network, we'll have number 11 Arizona hosting Cal.
Yeah, that should be interesting. I don't know what Cal's been out of the market lately, so we'll see what they can do there.
And that's your schedule for the key games in college basketball for this upcoming week. As you're listening to Second City Sports or Sports Zone Chicago, Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. As we have a few minutes left, Lakina, we will continue as we now go into tennis talk. And Nikola Djokovic got upset by Senna. It sounds like something you hear in a movie, but he got upset in the men's final. In the women's final, it was no surprise. Coco Gauff not there. The one that defeated her, she ends up winning the title on Saturday.
Yeah, a tough loss for Coco, but look, I mean, I'll be as Zabarinka, as good Lord, I can never been able to say her name. She gets this is her second straight Aussie Open, so Arena's been I think she's like undefeated. I think like she's won her last 10 matches there, so just a really great showing. There's her second Grand Slam. So yeah, look, happy for her, and look, she and Coco got a little bit of a rivalry there, a friendly rivalry, obviously. So yeah, I'm looking forward to many more years of those two playing each other. Yannick Skinner has been one of those guys that has been kind of like getting hot lately. He won the ATP final, the Tour Finals event in November. He beats Medvedev. It's actually his third time beating Medvedev, so he's had Medvedev's number lately, and he's beaten Novak 3 times now. Talk about Skinner. So yeah, he's starting to kind of show that, look, I can play with the big guys. He's 22. He's from Italy. He becomes the second Italian man to win the first US since 1976. And yeah, it's gonna be the new star for tennis. We've been wanting that for the longest.
I was going to ask you, will this be a new start, especially on the men's side for tennis, or do you think this is a setback for Djokovic?
I mean, like I said, Skinner's beaten him the last couple of times they played, so yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, because Djokovic has been dominating for almost a decade now, so we all know that runs like that eventually come to an end. But as you said, we may see the tide turning, so we'll see what happens.
All right, Sid is the Second City Sports. The rest of both worthy champions. Both terrific players and the young players. And they both did nice tributes to their parents. I know Zabalenka wrote a nice little tribute to her father, who passed away a couple years ago through COVID. And Skinner wrote a nice little letter to his parents. They were they couldn't make it, but that they were watching in Italy. So yeah, he's actually spends a lot of time here in the States and Florida. So both were the young rising stars in tennis. So we'll see if they can keep it up.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the Monday edition. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. As we usually do around this time, we close out our Monday shows with the Old School TV Monday Salute. And this week, we'll salute the 1970s ABC TV sitcom, Welcome Back, Kotter. That's right. It started Gabe Kaplan as a high school teacher in charge of a racially and ethnically diverse remedial education class called the Sweat Hogs. It was recorded in front of a live studio audience. The series aired on ABC from September of 1975 until May of 1979. It provided John Travolta with his breakout role. And the premise of the show started stand-up comedian Gabe Kaplan as the main character. He played Gabe Kotter. He was a wisecracking teacher who returns to his alma mater, James Buchanan High School in Brooklyn, New York, 10 years after graduation to teach a remedial class of loafers as known as the Sweat Hogs. The rigid vice principal, played by Michael Woodman, John Sylvester White, who was formerly Kotter's social studies teacher himself, dismisses the Sweat Hogs as witless hoodlums and only expects Kotter to contain them until they drop or get expelled or get arrested. As a former remedial student and a founding member of the original class of Sweat Hogs, Kotter befriends the current class and stimulates their potential. Kotter quickly forms a rapport with his students as they begin visiting the Bentonhurst apartment, sometimes via the free escape window, much to the chagrin of his wife, Julie, played by Marcia Strassman.
Yeah, I one of my favorite sitcoms, of course, the theme song is probably just as remembered as the show itself. So yeah, so that I think that went up to number 9 or something like that. Or it was in the top 5, I think, in the charts. But yeah, it dealt with various issues. It's one of the first shows to have a racially and ethnically diverse cast. You had Hispanics, you had Rob Palillo, of course, Horshack, being Jewish. Of course, Lawrence Hill Jacobs as the of course, African American. Of course, John Travolta being Italian and
Washington.
Yes, boom, boom. Hi there. That was his line from there. but yeah, I mean, look, it was a great, like I said, it was a great show. Like I said, it wasn't afraid to deal with various topics, but it didn't in a funny way too.
Yeah, and it really made you think as well. So some of the other recurring characters on the show: Vernie Watson as Verna Jean Williams, Freddie's girlfriend; Susan Lanier as Bambi, a female addition to the Sweat Hogs, of course. Melanie Holler as Angie Grabowski, introduced in season 3 as only female Sweat Hog was gone by the end of the season. And of course, they had a couple of guest stars to appear on the show, including Pat Morita, of course, Karate Kid in the 80s, James Woods, the late great comedian George Carlin, Scott Brady, Ellen Travolta, Richard Mole, Della Reese, and Donna Manoff.
Yeah, it was like I said, I mean, it was a really it was definitely a who's who that appeared on that show. So it was just a great show. Like I said, it's unfortunate still like a couple of them are still with us. We know that Gabe's still with us. John Travolta, of course, Lawrence Hill and James are still with us. Everyone else is dead, unfortunately, for the most part. So yeah, but it'll be interesting what I like it's treated very well, but I like that.
All right. And so we salute the old school TV sitcom from the 1970s, ABC's Welcome Back, Kotter. Lakina, closes out.
You follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, at Kio's in the IG.
You can follow Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And give War Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more time, as Lakina would say. Catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday, live in living color from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on Roku TV. You can catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, and What's Up Cuz. You can catch them tonight at 6.
Yes. And with Sports Zone Chicago being on Roku TV, you know we will provide.
All right, guys, do all the sports out there for Sid and Chris. For Sid, I'm Lakina. This is Becca C. Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday. We got some good stuff coming up on Friday.
Yeah, till then, holla!